Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. Your boy Road Dogg here with the man, the myth, the legend, the king himself, the big shooter with the little shoulders, Mr. Karl Bryan. How are you, Shoots?
Road Dogg, doing good, Shoots. What's happening, bud? What's happening?
Just living the dream, my friend. I know that's start of another week. I got a bunch of really good questions here.
I think by the way, we gotta tell everybody. Although this dates, we try not to date the podcast, right? Because people listen at all different times. But today is Road Dogg's birthday, and we just sang happy birthday to him. And it was possibly the worst rendition of happy birthday of all time, but we got points for effort. So Road Dogg, on behalf of all of our listeners and everybody here on the pre-show, happy birthday, big shooter.
I appreciate that, my friend. I appreciate that. And I've got bad news for you. There will be no time in your future that you'll be starring in any sort of a boy band. So that dream has officially been crushed for you. You will not be singing with the likes of your favorite bands, NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys. Or were you more like a 98 Degrees kind of a guy? I don't know where you were. Which one?
New Kid Shoots. New Kids all the way. In fact, I was at a buddy's house, Fast Eddie. I was at his house, and I'm playing, and he's like, so we all take turns with the remote, and I get it, and I put New Kids on the Block on step by step. Oh my gosh, I nearly got thrown out of the party. But anyways.
Yeah, well, I am at a loss of words that you would even attempt to put that on at a party. And I'm disappointed in your friends that they, in fact, did not throw you out, because that's
let me tell you one more. Hang on, I got to tell you one more. A very poor KB fact here. I was never a music guy at all, right? Like I love Duran Duran, love Madonna, but like I was never going to go buy a Delio. So my best friend, I've had the same best friend since I was 8 years old, right? Like we're like brothers. Anyways, we were both like that, right? Like tight, whatever. Maybe we're tight asses. I'm not sure, but we weren't spending money on music. That's for damn sure. Anyway, so we went the first tape that I ever bought, right? Tape, not CD, right? Aging myself. Anyways, we both, what we did, we bought New Kids on the Block, but we did one better. We went halves on it. So he bought half, I bought half, and we shared the tape, and we take it back and forth from one another's houses. So there you go. That's how into New Kids on the Block. Kids.
That is, how sometimes there's stories that you just should keep to yourself. I'm going to classify that one under it's out there now, but it's on the interwebs now. Karl Bryan, legendary business coach, huge fan of New Kids on the Block. So there you go. There it is. All right, bud. I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to try and save your ass here because we're going to have to really over-deliver now. Besides, reciting step by step, whatever I don't even know these songs. All right. Here we go. First question. Now, this one we discussed this because it was brought to me last week. We sort of chatted about this the other day, and this is, I think, I don't know, would you say this is something that every coach runs into? The question is, I'm overwhelmed. I'm already doing so much with my clients. Like, what else can I do to add more value? Would you say that's like, what stage would a coach be at when they're in this mindset? And then how would you answer that question in terms of adding more value?
I got to tell you, I think there's a lot of experienced coaches, because like where you're kind of going with that, I think is that this would be more like a rookie coach, a beginner coach, somebody who's getting going. But you know what? I think this one is pretty darn common. It reminds me of the to-do list, right? Like Road Dog, you got a to-do list today. I've got a to-do list. Everybody listening has a to-do list. You're not getting through it, right? So don't even bother. The secret to productivity and to-do lists is to make a list, prioritize it, and then like pull out the three most important things that you need to do on the given day. And then the way you do that is you go, I'm always talking about mental models, huge power. So you just go, you look at your to-do list, you think 80-20, and then you kind of work out what you got to get done. And then I would encourage you to go 95 rather than just going to what you perceive to be number 1, 2, and 3. I want you to do this instead, right? So you go 80-20 mental model. Everybody, generally, if you're a business coach, you understand that, right? But then go deeper and go 95-5, right? Again, needle moving, and then go 51, as in what are the 1% activities that represent 50% of the value of that to-do list? And that's what you get done first, second, and third, right? Sounds easy, but it can be hard to do. And the more that you do it, the better you're going to get at it. Remember, small hinges wave big doors, right? So like, I'll give you an example. Profit acceleration software, right? You can imagine very fluid, ongoing projects. Spend the majority of our days, working out how we can make the software better, et cetera. Well, we have got a list. Like we just hired a new software engineer, and like there's the to-do list on the software. It's literally it's a dozen pages long all day long. It's probably dozens of pages long, and that's just improvements to the existing software. Not gamification and some of the other stuff that we're working on, like the bigger projects. This is just like the little minor tweaks, right? So we have a few calls that we do per week. We call it Remarkable Hour, and basically all we drill down. The rule is we're not allowed to have idea sex. In other words, we're not allowed to think of bigger picture. We're not allowed to think past the existing unit. And just the goal is to make exactly what we're currently looking at better, right? So we try to create some lanes, which sometimes doesn't work perfectly, but it's good to have those parameters. We just look at the existing product and how we're going to make it better. So when we look at the to-do list, basically what we did is exactly that, 80-20, 95-5, and then 51. And as an example, like one of some of you listening are very familiar with it. Some of you have never even seen it, but just picture, it's pretty straightforward. There are 12 areas of the business that we go to basically find 100 grand, 45 minutes without spending $1 on marketing or advertising. Well, with the 12 areas, in order to get a value associated to each of them, you have to go into each of the 12 areas, right? You could do it really quickly. You just click on it, scroll to the bottom, attribute a value to it, call it 3, 5, 10%, whatever the number is. Let's call it 5%. And you'd have to click all. So if you went through 4 in depth, you'd have 8 areas left. Hopefully that makes sense, right? And then there's 12 areas that attribute value. Instead of I'm like, guys, we need a button right here, okay, where any section that has not got a value so far, we could just attribute a value to each of them, right? So in other words, we just go, put 5% in there, and the other 8 areas would automatically have 5%, because really what we're trying to say to a business owner is, again, small hinges wave big doors. If we just make a 5% improvement in all 12 of these areas, have a look in the upper right-hand corner and look what we just did to your profitability. In some idea behind all that is that when I look at that, I know that is going to be, that's an example of a small hinge that's going to wave a big door for our existing clients and the users of the software. So what I'm really trying to get at is when we look at the new to-do list for the software, we basically ran it through that. And that's where, as an example, that button went from, page 3 to right to the top of the list. Cause I'm like, let's get that done straight away. And by the way, we also, we look at how much time is it going to take the engineers to get XYZ done, right? This little button, it's going to be a day or two, it's going to be 8 hours of work, right? It's going to be done, ready to rock and roll. So that also factors into it. Like if it had that much of an impact, but it's going to take 3 weeks to get done, well, maybe something's going to go higher on the list, right? What I'm trying to get at, it's not just about looking at, 24 things to do for your software and then deciding which one. It's go 80-20, go 95-5, go 51. And I think that you might find you get a better result. When you look at your day, do the same thing, you might find a better result. When you're working with your clients and you're looking at the products, you're looking at the services, you're looking at the experiences that they're trying to create, do the same kind of process, and you might find that the priorities change in dramatic ways. So getting back to the question, so mistakes rookie coaches make, and I think coaches of all shapes and sizes, they're constantly trying to add more. It's more calls, it's more homework, it's more value. It's how can I bring more value, which is the way that the question was worded. More IP, like intellectual property, more videos, more tips, more products. What else can we add? And it's, when Tony Robbins coaches, he doesn't do it once a week, right? Like he's once a month at the maximum with his heavyweights, but a very high level of accountability, right? So like, one stage I was trying to scale my coaching. And I remember what I would do is I would do once a month call with business owners. And then I had a business coach who I called an accountability coach that would come and do the 3 weekly. So basically I still had weekly calls, but I was only doing one. And basically an accountability coach was showing up. So I was still directing traffic. I was getting a high level of reporting coming my way, right? So it wasn't like I just disappeared for the rest of the month. So I knew what was and wasn't getting done. And if I need to step in and there was a trade show coming up, I would appear, right? If there was a speaking event about, coming up and they needed a little bit of a bit of a kick in the butt or, a little bit of confidence, or I wanted to hear their close, I would jump in on a sporadic, like a lightning call. But anyway, so that's an example of something you could think about. But, start by doing less. Like if you do every week, maybe in the interest of getting more accomplished, go to every second week, right? If you're already every second week, maybe something like what I just said, like go to every month and see what kind of, results you can get with your clients, and make sure that there's tracking in between, right? If it's not measured, you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So don't just leave them to their own devices for 3 weeks, because that's not going to work very well. Again, a mutual buddy of ours, Road Dog, I got him into coaching. He does 3 weeks of the month, right? So he'll coach you for 3 weeks, and then he takes the 4th week off, and his clients know that he's doing that. Gives them a really good lifestyle, and he does very well. A couple $100,000 all day long a year with his business coaching company. And he has he's got 3 young kids. His youngest is like, 1 or 2. So thinking about that, what I'm trying to get at, Road Dog, more is not necessarily the solution. In many cases, it's take a step backwards to take multiple forwards. In other words, take away some, to get more done. Progress equals happiness. Keep your client moving. And it's all psychology, which really, think about fear. Like people don't do things because they're fearful, right? And then they regret not doing it. By the way, at the end of your life, right, you're going to be more upset by the things that you didn't do than the mistakes that you made. In other words, the risks that you didn't take. So, don't try to teach people that the world isn't dangerous, because that's not true, right? Teach them and coach them that they are stronger than what they think. There was a time when I couldn't have dreamt of doing a daily email. Like I was doing an email once a week. You can look back, right? Did one once a week. It was very long and long-winded to do. But, I just didn't think for in a million years I would be able to do a daily email. And then through blind emotional charge, here I am 2 years later, right? Every day, never miss. I've got a buddy of mine. He doesn't drive. In fact, I was just speaking to him recently, right? And it's like the reality. And it's not that he doesn't. It's not like he has an eyesight problem or something, right? It's just he doesn't drive because he's just just weak, right? My stepmom, she was the same deal. She never drove, and it comes back to fear. That's why. And then you get to a certain point where you live your life without it, and then why wouldn't you? But imagine your life without driving, right? And then imagine if you add driving for these individuals I just said, like, does their life become better automatically? A level of freedom, a level of efficiency and productivity. But, the greatest pain is where their greatest gain lives. It's often the guy who won't cold call that most needs to cold call. Like I often say, like Tony Robbins, like Road Dog, you and I are the guys that will go to Tony Robbins, but debatably we could stay home and chill out And it's the guy on the couch eating potato chips that really, really needs, Tony Robbins. It's like I wrote in a email recently that I take my daughter, like we go sea doing. And one of the rules of sea doing, I say, baby, what's the rule? And she says, we have to jump in the lake. We have to go to the middle of the lake and then jump in, right? Where it's coldest, by the way. It's darn cold, right? Like where we live, this water is colder than most lakes. And sometimes she's crying and she's, oh, Daddy, can I do it next time, please? The sun's going down, to do. And a deal is a deal, right? And I make her do it. Idea is that I'm trying, and I'm not perfect. And I wrote this out in an email and I got a little bit of interesting feedback. But, I'm trying to train her, right or wrong, to do the hard things. Like I believe hard becomes routine when you do it consistently. Disorganized becomes organized. Impossible becomes possible. Unclear becomes clear, right? What I'm getting at is this coach that wants to more value, more value, more value. I think that it's scary, and you'd automatically hesitate to go and offer less calls. Like, is that a good idea? And I think that what you got to do is you got to show up less, but deliver more. Do more homework with your clients, have a higher level of accountability. You need to get better. No such thing as a bad student. There's only a bad teacher, right? So, and I would also say this, that you can change in a very short period of time with a little bit of guts and a little bit of, not allowing the fear to brace you, to take you. It's, taking those risks. And an example, like I'll speak to people all the time that, they listen to the podcast, right? It's a pretty popular podcast. We got, it's a popular podcast. That's undeniable. You can go see the stats, right? They're online, right? Often when I speak to people, I'll say, so can you tell me like what has been impactful from the podcast? And of course they love Road Dog, right? They love the way Ribs Me Let almost gets, mentioned without fault, right? But what the takeaway is often about accounting or small business advice, right? That I've given. And guys, again, I'm a sales and marketing guy through and through. So it wasn't easy for myself, like to throw myself into accounting and small business finance. And quite frankly, it was humbling as hell. And there's a debate to say that I didn't do it because I was going pretty well, being the sales and marketing guy. But for my own personal mastery, I knew that this is something that I needed. So I totally immersed myself in it. It was, like I said, humbling. I was a total idiot in the area. But a few years later, I know it pretty darn well. And I'd go head to head with accountants. And I talk to accountants all the time, probably have 100 accountants as monthly clients. So I'll go head to head with them. And I'm not trying to pretend like I'm an accountant. I'm not. I don't want to be. That's not what I'm saying. But there's some important nuances like common sizing, understanding the power of unrecognized magic like depreciation, the importance of comparables, relationship trends. It's stuff that accountants in many cases don't understand, let alone talk about, right? But these are needle movers for the local business owner. So in sum, again, look, more value, more value. I'd be a little bit cautious with that. I would challenge the business coaching, the business coach thinking about that. And I would say maybe you need to go in the opposite direction, where you need to either do exactly what you're doing and add more value, as in, the magic that you're bringing to the call. And even go as far as maybe if you're doing weekly coaching, do it every second week. And by the way, if you do it every second week, you can now coach twice as many clients, right? There's a piece of magic there. But yeah, Road Dog, I get it. Like you said, you and I chatted about that, but adding more value. The reason clients cancel is that they get overwhelmed, right? And, just too much, falling behind. Let me take a break. I'll call you in 90 days. You're great. The program's great. I'm just falling behind. I'm not getting it. Let me catch up. 90 days, I'll be back. And of course, they never come back. The answer is not more stuff. That's for darn sure. So that's the way I'd answer that, Road Dog. What do you think, bud?
Well, it's funny because you don't even play an accountant on TV. So there's that, right? Hey, listen, I as you were going off there, one of the things that came to me was obviously, like, if we're using like say the profit acceleration software, you're going to have like a pretty extensive list of like to-dos, right? Of all these things to go through.
Yep.
And what really struck me there, what you said was, for me, it's like, well, rather than rushing through the material, Like, why do you track a new KPI? And that KPI is tracking progress. Like, are they actually implementing? Are they actually moving forward? Rather than just teaching them going away and hoping they do it, because you and I both know they're not going to. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, what's the KPI for that? Like, how do you know what I mean? Like that, I think that's a much more important measure. Never mind. I don't care if I only make it through 3 things out of say 20 or even the 12. If they implement them, I know it's going to have an impact on their business.
Okay,
right?
so
Rather than just teaching.
I'll give you an example of what I'd say, like, is how, like, because in a nutshell, like, how do you track it, right? Think of this. Always think of data. Why is Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, etc. It's that one word, data. Here's my question. You got a coaching client. They're paying you X, let's say $2,500 a month, whatever it is, right? And they're moving along. Question: after 3 months, how much data do you have? Okay, so how could you? And if the good chance the answer is 0, not a lot. Okay, well, here's a way to combat that. Think of the first 15 minutes of your call as a data exercise. Okay, so all right, Dave, right? So how many new clients last week? How many new prospects last week? How many new people on your email list? How many emails? How many emails did you send out? How many newsletters did you send out? Of course, every client. What were your revenues last week? What were your expenses? And I don't know that they're going to have their expenses tracked enough that you're going to be able to do it on a weekly basis, but definitely moving in that direction. Did you manage to negotiate? How did the call go with the landlord? How did the call go with the supplier? How did the call go with, right? So you're getting data on, okay, how are they going through their profit loss, looking straight at their expenses or their credit card statements and shaving off some expenses, right? So think of your first 15 minutes as a data collecting exercise. So this is how you could approach it a little bit differently.
Like it, love it. But this is just it though, right? Like, and I bet you, like, how many coaches are actually capturing data on week to week?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like meeting to meeting. Like that's the crazy part. Like as you're saying that, I'm like, shit, do I do that? Like, not to the extent that I need to be.
And that's where, like, you go into profit acceleration software. Like, that's where you go into, talk about needle moving things that we're working on. Like, we have an implementation calendar. We've got the priorities that, again, have all kinds of weighted algorithms. So, like, as an example, if you're a business coach and you go into an accountant's office and you want to get a joint venture done, right? Well, if you go in there and say that I'm really going to look after your clients and I'm going to transform them, I'm going to take them from where they're at to where they want to be, right? Like, this is the kind of verbiage that the average business coach is using, right? Well, compelling offer is one of the 12 areas on the software. Well, if you go in there and say that, look, Mr. Accountant, I'm going to find any business owner 100 grand in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. And I've got proprietary software behind me with 497 million weighted algorithmic sequences that are going to populate a roadmap that each of them can take away. Some of them will want to work with me and some of them won't. Every one of them will be given this roadmap that the software will populate and send through. Okay, so in other words, compelling offer and joint venture, okay, are 2 of the 12 areas that we go to when we find 100 grand. Well, compelling offer is weighted significantly higher than joint venture, because if you don't have a compelling offer in place, you should do that first before you go to the joint venture, because you're going to get significantly better results with the joint venture partner, right? Or last week we talked about, you've got upsells and cross sells, right? Do you want fries with that? And do you want me to supersize it? Well, do you want me to supersize that an upsell is 21 times as profitable, 21 times, you could look at it 21 times easier to make profitable than a cross sell, as in fries. So supersize is more profitable than fries, but most business owners will go to fries first. Again, with the software, guess what? The weighted algorithm calculates all that. And if they don't have one or the other in place, the weighted algorithms do their magic. So anyway, so the implementation calendar factors all that. And then we have weekly revenue, weekly leads. Like, we've got all these data, which we're improving over time, but all those data, those pieces of data that you'd be looking for from your client, there's a Q&A box right there, and it tracks every meeting. So anyways, there you go. That's it.
Love it. Love it. Hey, kind of sort of related but unrelated, and it almost sounds like a shameless plug for LPW. But like you've now, like, inside of LPW, there's 900 plus coaches, right? So my question to you would be, like, inside of that, like, if I'm going out to market myself, is having 900 plus business coaches, experts at my disposal, right, inside of my coaching business.
Yep.
And again, at no more expense to my client. Is that an MDP? And I guess I'm throwing out lingo here that people may or may not know. So please explain what MDP is. And
I know. Actually, this comes from our boy Eric. So shout out to Eric, who no doubt will be listening. So MDP, market dominating position. Okay, so for those not familiar, I want you to think of USP, which you probably know, unique selling proposition. We teach MDP instead of USP, and the difference, one's significantly more impactful than the other. I'll give you an example. A USP will separate you so that you're different from somebody else, but a market dominating position will go to the pain of your client and create value in and around that. Okay, so if I gave you a 101 example, if you line up 100 daycares for me and I go, guys, what's the hot button of your clients? They will say location and price with about 90% predictability, if not 98. Okay. Well, they'd be wrong. And you just got to take about 5 minutes to do the homework, which nobody does. If we go to the clients, the major hot button for mom, and mom makes the buying decision like 90% of the time. So don't worry about dad. You go straight to mom. What's her hot button? And I can tell you that it is accountability times 10. Okay, there's no comparison. Yes, price matters. Yes, location matters, but accountability is our hot button on steroids. So you could have, so if your daycare, knowing that, right? Imagine Road Dog, you owned a daycare, I owned a daycare. We're 10 minutes down the road from one another. Your daycare had a web watch where the parents could log on the internet, watch the kids, make sure they're safe, having fun. I could just pull over at the side of the road, pick up my iPad, watch my kid ripping around with the others, and watch them, mingling socially, et cetera, watching them play, right? No doubt you could see how the level of accountability, if you're letting me watch my kid all day, the level of accountability is through the roof, right? So that would be an example of a market dominating position versus a unique selling proposition. They could be, a daycare that does gymnastics. They could be a daycare that provides a higher level of learning. They could be a daycare that has computers, and this would separate them. But the question is that mom's hot button, is that a concern for her? If the answer is yes, you've got yourself a market dominating position. So just think of it. We talk a lot on the podcast about the average business owners looking for ideas. Karl, is this a good idea? Road Dog, will this idea be profitable? And the reality is that if you change your spidey senses to look for problems instead of ideas, you'll elevate your ability to make a very impressive income times a lot, right? So a market, so importantly, so somebody is asking, and it's Eric here, 900 business experts at my disposal. Is that a market dominating position? So the question is, does the chiropractor wake up in the morning and say to himself, damn, I don't need a business coach. I need like 900 business owners to help me. You know what I mean? And I would dare say, like, not, right? I think that it's an added bonus and it's a benefit, and I would definitely mention it, and it's powerful, but it's not a market dominating position because it's not a hot button, right? So so you say to me, give me an example. Guess what? I say this on almost every single podcast, and I'll continue to. When you work with us and use the software, we can find any business owner 100 grand in 45 minutes without spending $1 on marketing or advertising. And I would dare say that the average business owner at the end of the month, they go, I'm making a good business owner doing well, which is like, again, with a business coaching client, I don't want a dud and to pull them out of the mud. I want somebody who's doing well, and I want to elevate them, right? That's the easiest coaching client. So a good coaching client is doing well with their business, but at the end of the month, they're like, how am I making all this money and I don't have any profit? Like, where's all my cash? Where's the money in my bank? Why is payroll any kind of a stretch at this point? Right. So again, they're thinking about where's my dough. So I think if you tell them you can find them 100 grand in 45 minutes without spending $1 on marketing or advertising, in my opinion, you could be a business coach for a very, very long time. And if you can come up with a better pitch than that, hey, God bless you. I'd like to hear it. But anyway, so that is the answer. I love it. But guys, everybody just listening to this and taking it away, do understand that there's unique selling propositions that will separate your client or you. But really what you want to do is you want to create a market dominating position. And what that's doing is it's solving a problem for the person that you're speaking to. So when they hear it, they go, yes, please. So that's my answer, Road Dog. What do you think, bud?
Okay, so next question. Let's say you've established all of that. I like the sequence that we're going here today. We're in a state of flow, man. Look at us go. Listen, you've done a ton of events. You, of all people, have the gift of gab, unlike I think I've ever seen ever before in my entire life. But with that being said, somebody wrote in here and said, hey, I'm going to a networking group and wondering if there's a secret to becoming one of the main players. And if it's one thing I know that Karl Bryan knows how to do, it's captivate an audience and get their attention either through, well, I'll keep the party tricks aside, but why don't we just stick professionally here on how to do that first off?
Yeah, that could go sideways. Okay, so thank you, Road Dog, the kudos, my brother. Okay, so look, you want to look. I understand what they're looking for. They want to walk into a quote unquote networking group or that dynamic, and they want to elevate themselves. They want status within the group kind of quickly, right? So I like it. I feel like this is somebody kind of thinking at a higher level that, again, we talk about a lot on this podcast. I think we've accelerated talking about it, and I think we're going to continue to as we move along. Like, think of becoming a utility, right? So like a higher level of thinking is becoming a utility of the group. Like, okay, let's say that you got a street and you live in a neighborhood and there's lots of kids. Let's assume you've got some time on your hands, like your kids are growing up or you got no kids. In other words, you have a little bit of time. And you may not, okay, but then just take my metaphor as an example, right? Like there's busy moms on your street that have, kids, and often they don't have time to make dinner. That's why McDonald's exists, right? And the drive-through is such a raging success. You don't have to get the kids in and out of the car, right? So if you made dinner for a family once a month and you dropped it off for, their three kids and mom and dad, and you got a sense as to what it is that they liked. Do you see how after 12 months, if you kept doing that, if you did it once a week, you'd be more of a utility. If you did it once every day, which you'd be crazy too. Like, why would you do that? Like, that'd be weird maybe. But you get the idea. Like if you did that, you become a little bit of a utility, which you may or may not love the idea of, but it's the higher level thinking that I want you to think about. Like become a utility to the group, right? Become somebody that they rely on or benefit from, right? Because in any group, there's a hierarchy, right? Like in society, people fight it, but it actually keeps us from killing one another, right? Society doesn't function without like higher levels of status and lower levels of status. It's just, just the way it is. Don't get me started on the defund the police, right? It's insanity. 90% of cops, black, white, pink, blue, they got PTSD, the accidents, the suicide, the kids dying in their arms, the domestic abuse they constantly have to put up, the constant fighting. A mutual buddy of ours, Road Dog, he's a 20-year cop, just retired, and he just said, nothing good happens when we get called, right? These people need some psychological help, not to be defunded. And that's not to say that there aren't total jackasses on the force, because there absolutely are. And those people should be seen and shown the door, and they should be pushed the heck out. But, my goodness, show me an industry that doesn't have that, right? Or a group of people that doesn't have that. But back to hierarchy, right? Like, maybe, I played lots of hockey, right? I was a reasonable hockey player. I was captain or assistant captain of, most teams that I played on, right? Good, bad, indifferent. That's just fact. In every dressing room, there's that same kind of hierarchy, right? Like the older kids got made fun of, the older guys, made fun of the younger kids kind of thing, right? Like I remember a guy showed up with a face mask one time. Like when you get to a certain age in hockey, you don't wear a face mask anymore. You either wear no mask or you wear a half visor, right? But anyways, this guy shows up with a face mask. He's a pretty good little player, right? But he was a younger guy, and we called him Face Mask, right? And it was like, this was always going to happen. And of course, he really couldn't shake the name. He probably to this day. So if I spoke to him today, I'd call him Face Mask, right? Like when I was 16, I played up with 21-year-olds, right? I remember our goalie, he was named Shorty, right? And by the way, he actually liked it, but it stuck. But it was just such a good name. It just stuck. But here's what happens, right? The kid that can't take it, he pushes back. And he just, this is a bit of a problem in the hierarchy and the dynamic of the room, right? Like the kid's going to take a million times, the way I see it, the kid's going to take a million times worse than that. And we played on Indian reserves, and I could go on, right? Like there's important games. I mean, believe me, you're getting stuff thrown at you. You're getting hollered at. If he can't take a little bit of ribbing and jabbing from his buds, when it comes time in playoff time, are we going to be able to rely on him? And therefore, that guy often, kind of doesn't end up playing next year, ends up getting cut from the team, or he takes a lower, he's on a lower rung on the hierarchy. And the solution is just to suck it up, right? Laugh and, kind of goes with it and just become part of the crew. And even at my house, like we have parties, right? Road Dog, like we're known for having some ripping parties. We've got Bieber's dad and Johnny Utah and Road Dog and Fast Eddie, and everybody's kind of got a bit of a nickname, and lots of razzing goes on, right? Like if you're not joining in, you know what I mean? You kind of just don't last in this group. Like you guys listen to our podcast, it's pretty much, Road Dog making fun of me the whole time. And I like it, you know what I mean? Like it's got zero. I wouldn't have it any other way, right? So bottom line, you want to add something to the group. And if you do, you become a member fast. These might have been good examples, horrible examples. But like if you're too loud too quickly, it gets weird, right? Like understand that there is a hierarchy. Not to mention the cure all is to be awesome, right? You could be the world's biggest knob. And if you're an amazing hockey player on a hockey team, you're staying. And that's that, right? But you just might not be the most popular kid, and you might not be, the captain next year, the assistant captain, because you're not good with the ribbing and giving because not only do you have to take it, but you got to give it, right? Like that's part of it, right? So back to the question, clearly different, but similar to the local party and hockey dressing room. The room has a dynamic, and where and how you fit in is the question. So rise up 30,000 feet, right? Like. I don't know, maybe I'll put this in like number one, be awesome, right? Add value. How would you do that in a networking function? Actually, what do they want? They want referrals. Come armed with some referrals, like get to know who's going to be there, and then come armed with some legit referrals and some good referrals, and watch how quickly you elevate in that room, right? Knowledge. When somebody asks a question or when you stand up, give something that's impressive, you're going, you're likely going to move towards the top, right? Maybe do it too loudly and do it in the wrong order. This one I can't give you. It's group dynamics that you need to kind of understand, but add something different to the group that they don't have, right? Like one of the things when I went to a networking function, this might be good. I would only go if I had a seminar coming up, right? And then I would stand up, give my elevator pitch to do. And I'd say, by the way, guys, I'm doing I rented out the yacht club, the golf club, it would always be a reasonably prestigious venue that was very important. And I would give everybody there a free ticket if they were interested, right? And I would have a powerful and excellent elevator pitch where I said something impactful, not the lame, I take people from where they're at to where they want to be, blah, 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 platitudinal. And by the way, I buy everybody breakfast, right? When you come to my events, I would always buy you breakfast, lunch, or dinner, depending upon the time. So one, like, again, be awesome. Add that. What does awesome mean? Add value. And if you want to add value to a hockey team, score some goals, keep some pucks out of the net, right? If you want to add value to a networking function, bring referrals, bring knowledge, bring a dynamic to the room, and be funny, by the way. That can work well as well. What else should you do? Look, read the room. Like, again, you walk into a dressing room, you walk into a networking function, rather than jump into a conversation straight away, move to the side and observe. This is what I would do, right? Like, who has the crowd? Who's the clear leader of the group, right? Who's the guy looking for a friend, who's a hardcore introvert and he's desperate for somebody to talk to, right? In my hockey teams, I always found this guy and tried to elevate him. So I was just good at, even as a kid. This is something my best friend will tell you, that I love to involve the guy who otherwise wouldn't be involved, right? So just thinking about that. And again, because a quiet, good player on a hockey team, when you got positive attention, he became a higher level in the group, right? So then guess what? His game became better, right? So anyway, so you get the idea. There's somebody in the group that's looking for a little bit of attention, that, introvert. Look, buddy up with this guy, right? They don't remember what you say. They remember how you made them feel, I think comes to mind, right? Also become a bit of a personality amongst the group. Careful with this one. If you become, too loud, too quick, this can work against you. And group dynamics, I can't teach you this one. This is one you got to do on instinct and from experience. But remember, number one is be awesome and add value, and then you can do almost anything, and you're going to be all right. But like, what if you were the guy giving out nicknames at the group? You know what I mean? Like, that might come naturally. That might be insanely weird, right? But like, if there's an insurance guy there, I'm probably going to call him insurance. You know what I mean? I probably can't remember his name, but I wouldn't do it in a jerk off way. I would do it in a fun way, right? I don't know. So that's the kind of thing. And let me just tell you this: in the goal, I don't know. I think I'm ordering these a little bit, but be awesome, read the room. I don't know. At number 3, whatever I just said. The goal isn't to have everybody like you. Like, that is definitely going to work against you. Like, be there and be of value. But if your goal is to have everybody in that room like you, you're not going to do well. Because if you're going to be a leader, there is going to be somebody jealous of you with 1,000,000% certainty. So don't, don't make that your tact. And I think that some people understand where I'm coming from there, where, being liked is a desire, and it's not a damn good one. Anyways, bottom line, approach it strategically. And at no part of that strategy is to be the sweetheart of the group, right? Be of value, be a utility, and just understand that there's a hierarchy, and you got to work within that hierarchy. So before you go jump in, be more of an observer and understand, like, what is this? I don't know. What is it that I can add to this group when I show up next week, kind of thing. So it's just always psychology. Never ceases to amaze me, Road Dog. It's just that. It's just psychology. And you got to, and again, take risks, be fearful, right? Maybe you're going to make a boo-boo. If you're awesome, you're going to get forgiven. If you're not awesome, and awesome in a room like that is knowledge, is referrals, is introducing, oh, wow, you're a realtor. Did you realize this guy's a mortgage broker? You guys should really chat. There's some cool things that you can do. Well, the realtor and the mortgage broker are going to appreciate that, right? Well, you just by doing that, you automatically became a little bit of a leader in that group, right? Like, that's what they're there for, right? So I don't know, Road Dog, what do you think, bud?
I'm still stuck on nicknames, because that's sort of a specialty. Like, was it Bender? Was that yours, or what was your nickname? It wasn't Bender, was it, for the team?
Was it what?
Bender?
Bender?
Yeah.
No, shoots. Definitely
no. That was you?
Hot Carl.
I know it was Hot Carl, and I was just texting with Mike, and I'm just like, these are like, he's like KB and Hot Carl. I'm like, you guys are so soft, right? And the best he could come up with is hair dryer as your nickname. I'm like, Mike, if you guys, like, it's unbelievable. Like, it's like you guys must have been such a soft team when you got nicknames like Hot Carl and hair dryer being thrown out there. But anyways, I'm sure that Huntsy will weigh in on that at some point, but that is pretty. What other nicknames did you guys have on the team?
Oh God, are you kidding me? I got and look, your name, like, it's Gaza. Sometimes it just comes through your name and it gets shortened. Like, you add an E or it's a bit like living in Australia, right? Like, if you live in Australia, everybody's got a nickname, right? And it's George, like, somebody's named Georgie becomes Georgie Boy, right? Like, stuff like that. So I don't know, last names, KB is.
Have we ever gone over how I got my nickname? Because you didn't even know this story, right? Like, no. So just the story there, folks, is timestamp this one is so back in my days of living in Calgary, we watched, embarrassingly enough, a lot of wrestling at the time. And there was a wrestler named the Road Dog. So hence Road Dog, RODE is my last name. And then, of course, DOGG. So there you go. So because I know that everyone's just been dying to know that, Carl, right? So meanwhile, it's like, I'm watching wrestling. You're blow drying your hair. I'm really not helping this podcast move along at all right now. That is for sure. So anyways, coming back to where we were. Now, you talked about going to a local event, right? And just sort of some of the strategies that you can do to sort of dominate and make yourself like totally valuable. What about just in general, taking a step back? Because we had a question come in. It's like, how do I become a local legend of a business coach? Like, I don't want to just do well and make money. I want to make a serious impact. How would you tackle that question?
Yeah, so once again, I think it's kind of, higher level thinking. This is good. It's not like, how can I make 10 grand a month? So how to make an impact? Like just some businessmen, like again, there's Bezos and Buffett, and then there's different presidents and different athletes, they go on to make a positive impact and become kind of legends of our time. Like, George Washington led the American Revolution, got his head on the American dollar bill, not bad. So if you dissect what maybe he's done and others of his ilk, like the Steve Jobs and the Muhammad Ali's and the Oprah Winfrey's and the Michael Jordans, et cetera, Gandhi, Madonna, I'm going to put Madonna in there. I know she doesn't belong, but speaking of bad taste in music.
Of course you are. Are you going to throw Tom Brady in there too while you're at it?
Buddy, he's going to come out of my mouth. Tom Brady, right? Like, many, you guys get the idea, right? The big dog, Serena Williams. Like, if you're a business coach and you want to be a legend like, George Washington, there's multiple factors at play. But to achieve this level of impact or lead the American Revolution, speaking of Georgie Boy, let's call him Georgie Boy. But there's one key ingredient for all these legends. And look, you need desire, you'll need experience, intelligence, but they're not going to get it done. Of course, you need a basic understanding. If you're going to help business owners, you'll need a basic understanding of how to elevate a business client. Like the lead singer of a band can't rock the house if he can't hold a tune, right? Which we heard that earlier, Road Dog, when I sang Happy Birthday to You, Shoots. But assuming you're prepared to do the work and have a proven methodology, again, misunderstood, listen to what I just said. If you don't have a proven methodology when you go to work with your business owners, if you just kind of show up with hopium, don't expect to get anywhere. As when I say get anywhere, sure, you make 5-10 grand a month, but that's nothing, right? If you want to make a difference, you'll need a methodology, something like in our software, we've got 12 specific areas that you go to, right? It makes life so much easier. But there's one key ingredient that separates the business coach that transform businesses from that fourth place finisher that nobody remembers, right? Every industry has the same ingredient. Politics, acting, music, business coaching, health coaching, life coaching, sports, etc. It's that one business coach that goes on to make millions, and it's often the inferior one, by the way, and the others fight for the droppings. I can sum it up in 2 words, and it's emotional charge, right? Politicians that don't put enough emotion into their campaigns, like Hillary Clinton, Al Gore, Jeb Bush, like these guys, I think they have I think we all know that those guys kind of got made fun of a little bit. Like they get forgotten. Like in Trump, love him or hate him, and lots hate him, and that's fine, and others love him. The bottom line is he out-emotioned Hillary. The end, right? Like talented sports stars like Terrell Owens and so many others that place, more emotion in the microphone than the playing field, like they just get forgotten, right? So business coaches that aren't going to put, again, emotional charge into their coaching, look, no one even knows them, let alone forgetting them, right? They don't even know them. They're trying to build a following from scratch, and then they cry out this pathetic, I'm too good to cold call, which really is just fear, right? Like, why? They're just feared. They're worried that they're not enough, right? So that somebody's going to hang up the phone. You want to become a legend like George Washington, at some stage, you got to stop worrying about what people thought. I clearly don't need old Georgie Boy, but I bet if you sat him down, he'd say, give us one wish, George, right? Like, what would you do? And he'd say, I wish I stopped caring what others thought sooner, right? I would have accomplished so much more and positively impacted so many more people, but I would have done it quicker, right? So if you want to see your name on the front of a bill, which might not be realistic, but more to the point, you want to really be able to help business owners from like a dire situation, you got to shift. Like, there'll always be a gap between you and your coaching client if you can't take their side. Like, picture there's 2 sides at every kitchen table, right? Or every business table, every boardroom table. you've got to go to their side of the table, right? And very few people do that. They're more worried about, how much is this client paying me? Are they paying me enough? Am I getting paid enough? Are they going to pay this month, or are they going to cancel? Right? And like when I stay up at 3 o'clock in the morning writing an email, I promise you, like, I'm not doing it for me, right? Like, actually, maybe I do. Like, there's a funky relationship between status and integrity of, following through on this daily email and being able to say there's a certain level of pride, right? Being able to say that I've never missed a day, which I haven't. But and not to mention, I'm trying to provide a positive influence to the business coaching industry, which is kind of what we're talking about here. But the bottom line, one business coach is inspired, and their clients pay them for years, and then the other coach, 90 days, their client says, I'm overwhelmed, right? And then the scary thing is that business coach thinks that overwhelm is the real reason why their client canceled them, right? Remember, there's no such thing as a bad student. There's only a bad teacher. So I don't know. I just ask a question. Why do you do what you do? And again, we've covered this many different times on the podcast, but you want to become a local legend, you got to you got to go to success, right? Tony Robbins struggled in an unhappy home with no food and an abusive alcoholic mother, right? Brendan Burchard nearly died in a car accident. He was laying there, blood. Whether it's exaggerated, not exaggerated, it's irrelevant, guys. You got to look at the impact it's created. He said, did I live, did I love, did I matter? As he was lying there thinking he was going to die, right? Grant Cardone's dad died when he was 10 years old, and they financially struggled from that point on, and he went on to become a drug addict and almost died multiple times, right? My big brother committed suicide when I was 16 years old over a business failing, right? And my mother punished herself by drinking herself to death. Cars were repossessed. We had to move about 10 times, and on I could go, right? And I had a front row seat for the entire thing at 16 while I was going through puberty. I'll let you decide how much fun that was. But so forget me, forget them, you. Like, what's the story that you're climbing up from? And yes, you have one. I know you're thinking you probably don't. And if you do have one, you feel like it's not an impactful one. Believe me, you've got one, right? You don't become a business coach by accident. You don't, dedicate yourself to helping others by accident. There's something within you, right? So, and by the way, tell them when you work out that story and practice it a little bit, tell the business owners the story. Let them in. Stop trying to portray something perfect. Right? It's so lame, non-memorable. It's often pathetic and untrue, by the way. You're a rock star exactly the way you are, right? Bring your warts to the forefront. And how do you become less concerned with what others think? Simply immerse yourself, mind, body, situation, into the business owner. Move to their side of the table, right? Like a purpose far, far beyond controlling what others might think of you, right? Like, there's successful examples all around you. Mother Candy Leitner, I've written about this lots of times. She loses her 13-year-old daughter to a drunk driver. She has no business experience whatsoever, and MAD was born, right? A local child goes missing, and the entire community comes together. You guys probably heard of Amanda Todd. If you haven't, if you searched her, you would probably know her photo. She was a friend of my daughter's, and her mom, Carol. We used to drive her to, cheer competition. I remember driving them to Sea to Sky, which is a popular cheer competition in Vancouver. She was the second most Googled person on the planet the year she committed suicide. Miley Cyrus was number one with her twerking, that you might remember, was number one, right? And her mother, Carol, is a friend now, and she talks to prime ministers and presidents, and Lady Gaga called her to discuss bullying, right? And again, Amanda Todd, if you don't know that name, like if you Googled it, you'd see her picture and you'd know, right? And my daughter, her mom would do anything to have her back, obviously. And my daughter wishes she didn't lose a friend. There's all kinds of examples where emotional. In fact, I get another friend, Neil Bantelman, and I made a TV show about him. He was thrown in jail in Indonesia with 7 cleaners for raping a child. It's total hogwash. It's just a disgrace. If you saw it, you wouldn't believe it unless you kind of followed the case, especially if you knew him. I was just on a Zoom call with him last week, and basically got an 11-year sentence in Indonesia with mosquitoes and extreme heat and malaria. Well, there were weekly vigils for years for him, right? Even his school that he worked at, the amount that they had, right? Or he was charged in that school, and then the teachers and the principals and whatnot, the hierarchy of that school are doing vigils for the guy, right? It was absolutely crazy. TV show made about it. Bottom line is that there are vigils made like on a weekly basis. People are getting together and lighting candles, like. So, and look at the impact again. Trump, I hate to come back to him, but the reality is that the emotional charge that he brings in, love him or hate him, the guy creates charge in a very real, intangible way, right? That's why he beat Hillary, who basically, if you remember, basically could not lose. Again, love him, hate him. Don't get emotional about it. Just think about the opportunity that brings to you and what you could accomplish if you led with emotional charge, with that kind of attention, right? And suddenly after or amongst these tragedies, there's like this emotional fire that can't be harnessed, right? These people were watching reruns of their favorite show last week, and now they're holding up pictures and whatnot, and so they damn well should, right? Like these are big emotional events, right? So here's my question for you, right? How badly do you want to positively impact the business owner? That's how you become a local legend. Like, let me rephrase that. Does it matter to you that it matters to them? Do you care local business owners literally kill themselves when their marketing fails and their businesses go broke, right? Are you metaphorically willing to light cars on fire or find a camera to hold up a picture, right? Maybe at a minimum, we could get you to rally yourself to make a cold call, send out a Facebook or a LinkedIn message. Too crazy? And don't call them and sell them like a lame ass. Call them to help them, right? Like, and if you need some direction on what that might look like, I'm an easy guy to find. Reach out to us, and we've got software and scripts and all kinds of ways to do it and to get in front of them. But if you're not lighting the car on fire, like, why not? Is it time to listen to your spouse and get a real job, right? Business owners get inspired by a Tony Robbins passionate voice and puffed up chest and the strong language, even maybe a swear word once in a while. Whoa, right? And his willingness to do what it takes. When you see Tony Robbins live at an event, he's a total beast. I've never seen him live where he wasn't brought to tears, right? And is it staged? Like, if you think it matters, you miss the whole point, right? And newsflash, he doesn't care what you think. Why? Because he's driven by that emotional charge, right? That's why he creates those tears, to move you, because he's genuinely moved. Now, here's the question. Do you break tears at your events? Does your audience? And I dare say no, and it's probably something you never even thought about or contemplated. And the secret, by the way, is just the wonder of storytelling and conflict, and you will get better at it as you do it more and more. But forget getting brought to tears, and staying until 1:00 in the morning for a result, the way that maybe Tony Robbins and other speakers would when they'd ideally be sleeping. Most business coaches don't even have a video on YouTube, right? Why? Fear of looking stupid. It's like skydiving. You literally crap your pants until you start falling. And its most dangerous point, it gets calm and amazing. If you've ever done it, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You're free falling and having a casual conversation with a guy strapped to your back, right? Like it's suddenly normal. And your YouTube video and live events will stuck until they don't. Then they're awesome forever. When I look at my old emails that I've written, right? I literally cringe. And non-remarkably, I got better at it. Right? And I keep getting better. And by the way, it's 1,000,000 times easier to write them. And I'm 1,000,000 times quicker now than I was when I started, right? All your hopes and dreams lie just on the other side of the emotion you recognize as fear, right? So the solution, which is where I'm trying to get to here, get emotionally charged, right? Like, what moves you? Read the bottom of every one of my emails where I talk about separations and divorces and depression, dad in the fetal position, mom in the fetal position, the divorce, the splitting of the incomes, the desperation that the family then finds themselves in, right? I mean, maybe differently, like picture a raging forest and a fire in the mountains, and there's a deer there, and he's looking for a way out. His life is on the line, and he knows it. He moves left, right, jumps a fence. He's getting more and more desperate for a way out. It's getting hotter, like his skin is burning. The deer is now moving with reckless abandon until he finds his path. Question, like, do you generate leads and contact people with a reckless abandon like that? And if not, why not? Close your eyes and drop yourself in the middle of a forest with ADD on steroids. Make calls, send emails, search LinkedIn, search Facebook, make comments on LinkedIn, on Facebook posts, join forums, start your own forum. I don't know, write down your goals, get scared, get desperate, act, do something like the deer in the headlights, the deer in the middle of a fire, get some momentum so you can find your path to safety. When you find a way, like to help a business owner find 100 grand in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising, go and do it. Go all in, buy in like you probably haven't done before, right? That's how you become a legend. You want your coaching company to go to the next level or your lead generation to get easier and easier, then, start operating with emotional charge. Let that drive you. Again, think of when the local kid goes missing and everybody's showing up in front of the cameras, right? Like open up your mailbox and look at the local newspaper. And yes, there's plenty of them still there in the coupon book. Listen to the radio, drive by the local billboards, look at the marketing, look at the ads. They're blown up business cards the majority of the time. There's no compelling offers. There's no call to action. There's no expiry dates. You kidding me? Don't do advertising if you don't have those basics in place, right? And, these advertisers are literally wasting their hard-earned money that mom and dad could be using to send their kids to Disneyland. And the result? It's a heartbroken father that feels like a failure when he looks into his kid's eyes and he can't afford a summer vacation when his kids buddies are off to Disneyland. And the website you look at, again, 95% of the time, a waste of time. No compelling copy, no offers, no expiry dates, no informational offer. Their social medias are the same. In fact, they're non-existent, right? So, when you do call, connect, ask them, do you have an upsell? Do you have a downsell? Do you have a cross-sell? Do you have an upfront offer? Do you have a proper marketing message? Do you have a process to capture emails, phones, and information, coordinates? A proper business model in place? Again, Road Dog, we've talked about that tons, like a proper business model, very rare. A proper revenue model, are they just discounting, right? Proper goals, understanding 80-20 rules. Forget 80-20 and then you go 95-5 or 150, right? They don't have a clue. And it sounds good and they think that they understand 80-20 because they've heard it and they think that they know it. But if they're not doing it, they don't know it, right? Like it's soul crushing when you really look at it. They're working so hard, hugely long hours and not really getting anywhere. Is someone in your area finally going to get pissed off and say something to these people? Is someone going to go and do something? Maybe you, perhaps, right? So, do you give a crap that business owners in your area are killing themselves when their marketing fails and their businesses go broke? So many other situations like this to open your eyes and, stop worrying about whether or not you may or may not be perceived to be bothering somebody, right? And when your spouse tells you to go get a job, your new emotionally charged response will ensure that they will never say that to you again, period. Look, that's how you become a local legend, Road Dog. A little bit, it's just two words, man, emotional charge. And that's the way you got, the same way that Candy Lightner, again, created Mad when her daughter was killed by a drunk driver. Something along those lines. That's how you become a local legend, not by, picking up the phone in the morning and following a system to do. Yes, you need to have that. Remember, you motivate an idiot, they do stupid things quicker. You need that roadmap. But what you really need is something that's driving you. So that's my answer, Road Dog, to becoming a local legend. What do you think, Shoots?
I think you could have summed it up in 2 words. That's amazing. And by the way, folks, in no way are we condoning burning of cars. I'm just throwing that out there. At least I'm not. All complaints should be addressed straight to Karl. If you're going to burn cars, go ahead and do that. But I don't condone burning cars. So there's that. Listen, Shoots, I think we're out of time. If you had to pick one thing, what would it be from today's podcast?
One thing. Look, you're hard to get past emotional charge because I think that is a superpower. I think also just, like the networking group, I think it's, like I said, I love that question because it's a higher level thinking. Again, you think 80-20, do you want to confuse being busy with being successful? Going to networking groups and, towing the line is so it's a good way to stay busy. Going to the networking group with a very clear game plan that you were going to add value, become a utility to the group, provide some referrals, provide some content, provide some knowledge and wisdom they might not have heard elsewhere. Again, that's higher level thinking. And you could go to significantly less networking groups. And then it's not just networking groups. It's the chamber. It's the event here. When you go to a trade show, it's the same thing. What's your plan? And most people don't have a plan. Like, if you're going to go to a trade show, you need three things: a plan before the event, a plan during the event, and a plan after the event. And most people go to a trade show, don't have a plan, period, right? The difference, I could go to one trade show and get more value, more clients, more revenue, more profits than another business coach could do going to 5 different trade shows. And why? And by the way, I would put the emotional charge in there that I actually care, because I know that these people are going to the trade shows and traveling from one side of the country to the other and setting up their dealios and doing this and doing that. And they're not getting the value. And these people would probably they'd rather be with their kids. They'd rather be with their spouse. They'd rather be with their family, right? So I know that I can help them get further faster. And there's a good chance they're confusing being busy with being successful. So I rise up and I come from that point that I'm really going to give and deliver value, as opposed to, I wonder if I go to this trade show or this networking event or this chamber event and get some clients and make some money. It sounds platitudinal, but I think, again, the folks that follow us and whatnot and listen to this Road Dog, I think they get it, but it's a higher level times 10. So there you go, Shoots. That's what I'd say about it.
Beauty. All right, man. Well, everybody, thanks again for tuning in to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets with the man on top of the hill, King Karl himself. And if you're not on the inside getting access to the pre-show, or you aren't getting access to Karl's daily emails, you just want more information on how to build your coaching company, visit focus.com and subscribe today. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share with a fellow coach or someone you think might make a great coach. And of course, we'd appreciate that you'd rate this episode, as we know that iTunes and Spotify give an insane amount of weight towards reviews. So please leave us a review if you like what you heard. Well, Big Shooter, that's it for another week. Remember, everybody, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.